Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the debrief-ish. Geo, how is oneself?
I'm good. I'm better. Last week was a write-off, but I'm better today. I enjoyed the football last night. I'm looking forward to the football this evening. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm there. I'm there as well. We both got ill, me and you, and now I'm back rejuvenated. I'm coughing every so often, but I feel fine. So I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the football as well tonight. I feel like with England specifically, I won't go into it too much with you, but I feel like with England specifically, I feel like maybe something has clicked. But I feel like you can't do what you have been doing. Now, don't get me wrong, it wouldn't shock me if the exact same lineup happens again. But at the same time, I feel like we might see something a little bit different. Not that it's going to vastly change our fortunes, but it's that like step forward that's giving me the excitement. Because if you keep taking step forwards to the end of the tournament, then we're there. That's all we need.
I like people having hope in life. It's an important thing. I think if you don't have hope,
Sure,
what have you got, right? And I dislike people constantly removing hope from other people.
sure.
I'm not going to be that man today. I'm going to allow you to have that, Charlie, because I feel like I'm in a good mood and I feel like I could take that away from you quite easily. However, I do not wish to do that.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. But
I'm going to ignore it.
let's move on to West Ham
Oh,
because
yeah. Actually, well, yeah, we could do. It's deadline day today. There's now two deadline days in the transfer window. We've got
yeah,
the last day of the transfer window and we've got the 30th of June, which is, if unless they change things in terms of FFP and PSR, today, the 30th of June, will now be a new deadline day when it comes to transfers going forward in the Premier League. And as Apache says, 15 hours until the PSR transfer deadline. Will we take advantage of it? Not just us, obviously, plenty of other clubs, and maybe some pickings from easy clubs at the moment. Newcastle are in the process of selling Elliot Anderson to Nottingham Forest somewhat reluctantly. The winger that was at PSV, I think, Minty, is that how you say his name? He's off to Brighton for 30 million. So he's away to Brighton. So there's going to be a bit of some movers and shakers in Premier League today. Whether we're involved or not, I'm not too sure. But at least we're not one of the clubs under pressure to sell in order to meet the PSR regulations. That's Newcastle,
yeah.
Everton, has been Aston Villa. So it's deadline day, kind of.
Yeah, it's gonna happen every single year now. Because there'll always be someone who's gone a bit funny and spent whatever they couldn't spend or whatever. And then we end up in a situation that we have now where people have to figure that stuff out. Whether we'll take advantage or not, probably not. But it does feel like it's going to be more of a recurring theme. As PSR and like FFP or whatever you want to call it starts to actually genuinely have an impact on people, we will see this continuously happen because there will always be these players, there will always be these clubs, and it's going to be interesting to see because I feel like for us we somehow have managed to avoid it. And I'm kind of shocked, and I think maybe potentially the Rice thing happened at the exact right time. And you know how you were talking about hope? I don't know if I have hope that we've somehow got a bit smarter and haven't figured it out, or maybe just David Sullivan's innate conservatism in the way he works on the transfer market. This is this is the way it's going to benefit us. But I wouldn't like to be a fan of one of those clubs. I wouldn't like to be a
No,
fan of having to watch like Newcastle seeing Anderson leave on for probably less money than he's worth or whatever, just because it has to happen and get out the door and that sort of stuff. I wouldn't want
yeah,
to see us be one of those people.
I think the worry for if you're a Newcastle fan is that you just couldn't raise enough money with your players that you're happy to move on, like Almiron and Longstaff, and
Yeah,
Almiron is at Copa America as well, which isn't helping. So you can't really move on the ones you want. And then there was rumours, and I didn't necessarily believe it, but there was rumours linking Liverpool to Anthony Gordon and Chelsea to Alexander Isak. And that's the situation you can find yourself in pretty quickly, where the big club is sat there going, you've got 2 days, and there's only one guy in your team. We want your star guy. We want him. We want your best player. And we're willing to pay for him. And you might have to sell him or face a point sanction. But in all honesty, I think there will come a day where someone like Newcastle turn around and say, "Do you know what? We'd rather have the -6 points and sell Alexander Isak for he's worth more than 6 points. So we'll take the 6 point deduction and we don't sell any of our players. I think at some point you might find 1 or 2 Premier League clubs trying to debate, not the ones in the relegation battle, obviously, but the ones at the top, in around the top 8 or whatever. Is it worth the 3-4 point deduction they're going to get in order to keep their star players? It might be worth it because they might actually gain more points next season with them, which gives them a positive outcome in terms of. I don't know. It's a messy thing. Anyway, do you want some? Yeah, go on.
I think I was just going to say, I think that's probably why players like youth English players are going to become even more gold dusty than they were. I mean, you only have to look at Villa poking around our youth academy of all places. I mean, Villa's a great example, right? If you look at Villa's squad building over the last 3-4 years, and you know, people like what's the name of the striker who went to Sheffield United? Archer, Cameron Archer.
Oh yeah.
Right, people like that who are just like somehow getting 20 mil or whatever for him, right? And just being like having those sort of transfers are going to exist sort of permanently. And I think the people, it's one thing we're going to have to learn as a club as well. I think when to sell your youth players. It's because they're going to be homegrown, they're going to be 100% profit, all that stuff. We're going to have to learn to do that, and that's not something we ever want to do. And I think the only clubs you'll ever see who have to have that debate about, say, Alexander Isak, are the ones who don't have their youth player system figured out. They're the ones who are going to have to figure it out. Because if you're someone like Villa, who have their stuff sorted, then there's always going to be a Jacob Ramsey or whatever who you can sell for a relatively high fee compared to how good they are, because they're homegrown, because they're young, because they're 100% profit, and they won't ever have to have that conversation. Whereas clubs who don't figure that out will have to sit there and go, do we sell Isak? Do we sell whoever it be?
But we've made moves. This week we've signed 3 or 4 young players up to the academy from likes of Man City and Arsenal as well. Obviously, one being Kenny Bound's sons. It's a bit of an easy one to get that one done to some extent, although he's held in high regard at Arsenal. We've just signed someone from Man City. I think there's someone from Man United arriving. So we are starting to try and show a little bit of muscle when it comes to bringing in players for the academy. And obviously, Callum Marshall, you'd imagine, will be worth a few quid in a couple of years, even if he doesn't make it at West Ham. So we are doing some things. But today I want to focus on the transfer rumours for the senior team, because it got a little bit chaotic in the last 24 or 48 hours. So strap yourself in. Are you ready for some transfer rumour updates, Charlie?
Lay it on me. I'm buckled in and ready.
So they're all incomings bar one. And the one is because it's confirmed, and that's Heggie going to Motherwell on loan for the season. He signed a 3-year contract extension, went to Motherwell, who are currently out in the Netherlands finishing up their pre-season training. And they have a friendly today. Now, he doesn't officially become a Motherwell player until tomorrow, the 1st of July. However, he can play for Motherwell today. He was on the bench for them on Friday because West Ham have given him permission. It's an uncompetitive game, so he's actually able to play thanks to West Ham. So he may feature for Motherwell today. There's a number 1 shirt up for grabs at Motherwell at the minute. Their keeper, Liam Kelly, just moved to Rangers on a free transfer. So there's 2 keepers at Motherwell. Heggie is one of them, and they're sort of going to be battling out for the number 1 shirt, I think. Obviously, the other guy's got the advantage at the minute. He's been there a little bit longer. But Heggie's gone to Motherwell, and we've signed him on a 3-year contract. So our goalkeeping situation is now sort of signed, sealed, and delivered for the summer. Moving on to the transfer rumours then, and I must stress, these are transfer rumours, not what me and Charlie want to see at West Ham necessarily, right? So at right back, Kyle Walker-Peters remains to be the main contender. However, nothing new since Thursday, which is Southampton have offered him plus cash in return for Flynn Downs. Wan-Bissaka continues to be linked, as does Alfie Doughty, although he's, I guess, a left wing back. He can play over on the right-hand side as well, so he's linked to us as well. Then we move on to Trevor Chalobah of Chelsea, who is naturally a centre-back. Chelsea want to move him on for approximately 25 million, PSR, 100% profit. We just discussed this. So he's not really a natural right-back, however, can cover right-back, but he's being linked to West Ham. Calafiori, who had a really good tournament with Italy at Euro 2024, they're now eliminated. He has been linked to ourselves as well as a host of other Premier League clubs, and it's thought that Bologna is willing to cash in on him. So if West Ham's interest in Calafiori is genuine and serious, I wouldn't be surprised to see us make a move for him very soon, with Italy now out of the Euros. The links to Perez of Udinese have somewhat died down in the last week or so, but Max Kilman is going nowhere. Whether we have or will make a third bid is yet to be seen, but I remain pretty, now this is my opinion, I remain pretty confident we will be making a third bid for him, and I expect him to sign for West Ham, actually. But Max Kilman remains the number one target for West Ham, but in particular, Julian Lopetegui. Moving on to Jake O'Brien. This is a transfer rumour that crept up a couple of months ago, disappeared, and it just randomly came back in the last day or so. The Lyon centre-back, Irish, was at Crystal Palace, didn't play for Crystal Palace, went out on loan. Lyon bought him for, I think, a couple of £1 million or something, really cheap. Now worth 30 million, according to Lyon, after one good season in the French league. But he's been linked to West Ham once again. And then that leaves us with Jacob Greaves, the Hull City centre-back. He has been recommended to West Ham by the same person that recommended Jared Bowen. So there may be a preferred agent of David Sullivan at play here, but that's where the recommendation for Greaves has come from. It's not necessarily a Tim Steidten pick. It's this guy will play for England one day, nudge, nudge, wink, wink pick. However, it's not to say Tim Steidten doesn't like him or wouldn't like him. He might have gone and done his research into Greaves and decided, actually, this is a guy I like as well. But the fact that we have yet to bid would suggest maybe Tim Steidten isn't as keen as someone else at West Ham, not Lopetegui. Moving on to the midfielders, and one we're being linked to, there's not really any centre midfielders we're being linked to at the minute. The two that felt substantial was Ismail Kone, who's joined Marseille, and Alex Garcia, who's joined Bayer Leverkusen. So we're sort of waiting for transfer rumours in the centre midfield department. Sule continues to be linked, although we're not too keen on the price tag. Zaha continues to be linked, although I'm not too keen. Jota Silva is also linked once again, and despite him having a £17 million release clause, we still have yet to make a bid for him. So if we do want him, it would suggest he's maybe not our priority. Apparently, the priority is another Hull City player, Jaden Philogene. He joined Hull City last summer from Aston Villa for a handful of million, has done really well in the Championship, scored the Rabona. We all remember that one, I think. Very fair player, left winger, right-footed, 22 years old. It's ticking all the boxes as to what we want to see at West Ham, I think, but he's apparently become our number one target for the winger / attacking midfielder position. So whether we make a bid or not, we have to wait and see. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do. Now, moving up to the strikers, Jonathan David is continuing to be linked. Callum Wilson was, but I think that's more of a Newcastle situation thing. They want to move Callum Wilson on. West Ham need a striker, 2+2. And I think the same is in case of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Was expected to join Newcastle in a few swap deals. Villa, Chelsea, Newcastle, and Everton were all sort of linked to each other's players, with certain players moving for perhaps increased fees because it helps out the PSR. All four clubs would then go, fantastic, we meet our requirements for PSR, we move along. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was expected to join Newcastle. Still might do. It still might happen today. However, I've got a feeling the interest in Dominic Calvert-Lewin may decrease rapidly tomorrow because the situation wouldn't be there to be taken advantage of. But apparently West Ham are monitoring it. But again, if the interest is serious, I expect a move today. And then that leaves one more player, Mikautadze. I think that's how you say his name, is Georgian striker. Scored a lot of goals, went to Ajax, didn't really get an opportunity, and he scored 3 goals so far in year 2024. He is being linked to us at the minute. However, apparently he wishes to stay in France, but that is who we're linked to. Charlie, that's your transfer rumours.
I mean, we all just got. Sometimes you just got to appreciate people. You just got to appreciate. Yeah, I mean, what was it? Here it is. Nick says, tons of noise at West Ham, but just 2 signed, one as third choice goalkeeper. Villa and PSR trouble and signed Matson for 35 million. Should we be worrying? What are your thoughts, Geo?
I am chilled. I'm very calm. I might do a video about it specifically tomorrow. It's the same with the transfer budget and stuff. I'm really calm at the minute. I think for various different rumours. There's a lot of rumours, right? Most of them won't be true. I don't believe most of them. Copa America's going on. Euro 2024 is going on. It makes it a little bit tricky. There's not that many clubs done that big business. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can't say I've been monitoring what Fulham have done in the transfer window, but I don't recall seeing them making a major transfer or anything like that. So I think there's a lot of waiting around happening. I think we need to get this deadline over and done with first. I feel like while it's maybe sort of vultures around some clubs, in stress, we're not involved in that really. We don't need to sell, but also we're not really looking to pick up any of those players, which I think if we had no Tim Steid and David Moyes, I think we would be involved in it. I'd imagine Moyes would say, actually, I quite like those players of Everton. Maybe Tarkowski, can we make a move for him? Because remember, we bid 40 million for him or something, or we were going to bid 40 million for him a few years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if we went to Everton and said, we'll have him for 10 million and try to take advantage of something. The fact that we're not suggests to me that there is a transfer strategy in place, because all this rumour suggests scattergun. I actually don't think it does. I think it just suggests there's lots of rumours. But if we were sort of scattergunny, I think we'd be looking at the Newcastle situation, thinking, oh, who could we have? And actually, Callum Wilson is possibly somebody we might have made a move for previously. But the fact that we've looked at it and went, nah, we've refrained from a fire sale at St James's Park, that's progress. Despite buying nobody, that is progress for West Ham. So I'm pretty chilled.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with getting involved in fire sales. Don't get me wrong. I think, if you see someone who you think you like and he's available for a lot cheaper, and you're like,
hey, I'm going to use a Martin Lewis saying here, right?
Go on, lay it down.
And it's in regards to Black Friday.
Go on.
He says, when you get 50% off something you want, you save 50%. When you get 50% off something you didn't want, you've just spent 50%.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it always used to annoy me. Right, we'd go to Tesco for lunch when I was an accountant. Right, we'd go to Tesco for lunch, and then like say there's like a chocolate bar that was like 2 for 1 or whatever, and then it'd be like buy one get one half price or whatever, and I would buy one, and then my mate would be like, why don't you get the second one? It's cheap, and I'm like, because I don't want it. Why would I buy I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to, surprisingly, looking at me, I wasn't going to eat it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You look at it, you go, ooh, maybe we want, whoever it be, Wilson, whatever. Yeah. You get involved, maybe you'll have a little dabble. But if you don't need to, you don't want to, just leave it to the side. And I think it's something Cal brought up to me yesterday on the Patreon, patreon.com/amateur, link in the description below. We were talking about the targets and the signings and stuff, and the fact that although it is a lot, and I'm sort of in a similar place to you. I'm relatively calm about it, but although there is a lot going on, there are like threads of logic happening as well. It's not like 4 years ago or whatever, probably more likely pre David Moyes, but where like we would be linked to 15 centre backs and they would all be completely different, or we'd be linked to like 4 strikers and it's like one looks like Andy Carroll, the other one looks like Jermaine Defoe. It's like, what is going on here? Why are we linked to these random players? Actually, there are some threads of logic going on where you look at our centre backs and they are all relatively comfortable on the ball, big, strong, dominant players in the air. Like, there are threads of logic which show that actually maybe there is some thought process going on here. And I don't mind being linked with lots of players. I don't mind it too much. The later in the window it gets, the more being linked to 15,000 players stresses me out. But actually, the fact that we've been active in the market this early, the fact that we are sort of doing stuff, I'm relatively calm about it all. I think it's all sort of quite logical compared to what we have seen at West Ham previously. Yeah. And that, as long as it's, again, steps forward.
If it was the 30th of July, then I'd be concerned. But it's not. It's the 30th of June. It's the 1st of July tomorrow. Pre-season training begins on Wednesday. The goalkeeper situation's sorted. I think our left-back situation's sorted. I know some people might want to see a left-back. That's fine. I just don't believe we will see one. I think that's us for the season. Unless, of course, someone comes in and buys Emerson. I wouldn't expect to see any purchases.
Yeah.
For left back, and listen, the squad needs work. We need players. 7 was the magic number being banded around. That's 2 in, 5 to go. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But I'm okay. I think we need to get the right back thing sorted. The centre back one needs to be resolved as well, and I've maybe got a bit of concern with that because how far do we go before we call it quits on Max Kilman? How far are we willing to go for Lopetegui's number 1 choice? And I believe it is his number 1 choice. As I always say, everything, transfer rumours, literally all depends on what and who you believe. That's it. Because we all believe different things. I might believe different things to Charlie. He might believe different things to me. Some people didn't believe it when I said we were signing League One Wes. it all depends on who and what you believe. So I believe that we want Max Kilman. I believe that's Lopetegui's number one choice. But how far are we willing to go? And that's where there's a bit of pressure maybe applied to Tim Steidten and David Sullivan to some extent, because last season I feel like at times Sullivan probably had to choose between Steidten and Moyes, and he did the worst thing, which was choose neither and just let them squabble.
Yeah.
Not sure you can do that this time round, because if Lopetegui really wanted Kilman and Steidten says it's too expensive, I don't mind getting him, but he's not for that much of the budget, then we've got a bit of a situation on our hands. So that's maybe the only part that's caused me a bit of concern. It's not the lack of signings, just the asking price for Max Kilman. I think that's giving me more worry than the lack of activity in the transfer window.
I think the fact that the only reason that doesn't worry me yet, I agree with everything you say, but the only reason why that doesn't worry me yet is because we're so early in the window, and this is the time when Wolves can afford to play hardball. They can afford to go 45 mil or nothing, which is what they should be doing, by the way.
Yeah.
In the same way that we should do the exact same thing with our players, right? Just you have your price, you set it, and then you go. You can meet it, you can go, or you can just go away. We're not interested, right? When that comes, that's very easy now. At the end of June, it's very easy to deny that as a Wolves, as Wolves. It's very easy to go 45 mil or nothing. When it comes to the end of July, it becomes a much different question, because that's the moment where you go, if you're Wolves, are you gonna take a lot of money for him? Are you gonna not? Like the later it gets, the more tempting it becomes. And so I think if I'm again, it's difficult when you look at the situation at West Ham, and it's difficult with all football clubs and all football fans, right? But because we never know everything. We know enough to sort of read stuff into bits and pieces, but we'll never know everything, which is kind of the worst case scenario, because it means that we can start to make up our own narratives and feel how we feel about certain things, and it sort of fits however we feel, right? So I can naturally go, well, if I'm Tim Steidten and I'm in this situation, I just go to Lopetegui and go, we need to buy 2 centre-backs anyway, probably. Let's go focus on the second one. And we'll come back to Max Kilman later in the window when maybe they'll be a bit more flexible on price. And then Lopetegui maybe goes, yeah, that's cool. I understand that. Let's start to concentrate on other things. So I can naturally drag that out of the situation because I don't know the conversations that happen. Whereas someone else who goes, we've hit a barrier and Lopetegui's going to be pissed off about it, can also read that out of the situation because we're never going to know enough information. I'd still err on the caution of there's no rush on this one, because if this is the big one, then there's no rush on it. We can take our time, because like I say, we do probably need a second centre back. I think the Kyle Walker-Peters thing is great business, for example. Make that happen, but that probably means we need another DM. There are plenty of things to be getting on with in the meantime, so I'm not too worried, if you see what I'm saying.
The only reason I don't think we can wait for Kilman is because some of the alternatives may move in the meantime.
Sure, but yeah, that's totally fair. I think in a situation where you need several, though, I don't know if we'll end up signing several centre backs, but I feel like it's not.
I think we need 2. I think we're targeting 2, but let's just say our second choice to Kilman was Greaves. Let's just say that, and then Ipswich going for Greaves tomorrow. It's a case of now, what do we do? Do we move for the second choice, or do we let her leave? Still got her number 1, but we can't get him. We're now on to our third choice. Does that make sense? That's my worry for Kilman, is it's the alternatives moving. Listen, there'll be names that we want that we've not heard of yet, as in it's not in the media. I think there will be more transfer rumors to come, and some of those links will be genuine. Steidten isn't stupid, This might be his first rodeo as like a director of football, but he's learned from Simon Wolfes. He's not daft. He's going to know what to do. That's why I was impressed by getting Bourne to sign a new contract, because it reminded me a little bit about Patrick Schick when they wanted him to sign a new contract at Leverkusen. It was Simon Wolfes that went and dealt with it personally, and he flew over to Czech to get him to sign that new deal, which he did. And no ball, Brady couldn't get Bourne to sign a new contract that Steidten did, and there he was in the room, proud as punch as he signed that contract. And I like this move. So he's not daft. It's just a case of, it's almost a balance of doing what's right for the club, but also like your head coach / manager's happiness, I guess. How do you at what point do you cut the legs off his transfer target and go get someone that you can get that's a suitable alternative? It's a difficult decision. you only know you've got it right halfway through the season when both players are performing. One's at your club and one's at another club, so we'll wait and see. Now, before we move on to comments, get your comments into live chat. Charlie, I just want to point people in direction of Patreon because it's deadline day for PSR. It's also deadline day for this match-worn Aaron Cresswell shirt, which I'm holding up horribly wrong. There you go. That's it there. This shirt was worn by Aaron Cresswell against Fulham in 2020. It's the game when Luke Min tried to dink Fabianski and got it all wrong. That match, Cresswell played in it. It's obviously very rare due to the poppy on the shirt as well. We're giving this away on Patreon. All you have to do is join Patreon today and you're entered into the draw. So you can join from £3.60 per month. So let me put it like this. We can't raffle it off. That's illegal. But would you pay £3.60 for a raffle ticket to be in with a chance of winning that match-worn Aaron Cresswell shirt? If the answer is yes, then head over to Patreon today, patreon.com/Hammers Chat, and pay your £3.60. Or you can become a mild addict and pay a little bit more, or an addict and pay a little bit more. And if you're an addict in July, you get a free gift from Hammers Chat. It may or may not be beer mats, but you will be getting a free gift if you're an addict in July. But not only are you entered into that, you will get a month's worth of Patreon between now and the 29th of July when you have to renew your subscription. You will get every single video on Patreon for your tier. You'll get online store discount. We've got a Q&A next week with Jimmy Walker. We've got a Q&A in July with another favourite from Upton Park. There's lots of content over on Patreon as well. You'll enjoy all of that, plus your entry into your match-worn Aaron Cresswell shirt. Plus, if you pay for a Patreon subscription in July, you'll be entered into a draw for a match-worn Javid Bowen shirt. There you go. That's my promo done. Patreon.com/Hammers Chat. Yeah, Barry, if you're already on Patreon, you're already in the draw. You're already in the draw. Anyone that has paid to be on Patreon in June, whether you're new, you're existed, or you've been there from day one, you're in the draw. Don't worry, Barry. You're in the draw already. You're already in it. You don't have to do anything. You're in it already.
You're good, Barry. You're good.
You're good. Right then. Let's take some comments. Charlie, you've started a couple. Do you want to go with those ones?
Yeah. Let me go across to it. Yes. For example, Kevin says, with today being the last day for PSR, surely that means if you have a surplus in the year, you should do early transfers to avoid restrictions on next year's expenditure, e.g. Louis G. It's an interesting point. I haven't really thought about the opposite side of it. I think because we're obviously concentrating so heavily on PSR as a consequence of like recklessness to an extent and going, oh crap, we've got to sort out our problem now. I hadn't actually thought about what the opposite side of it would mean if you're a club who are, especially if you've got quite a lot of lee room, what that could mean for you. I never really thought about it at all. It's an interesting way of thinking about it, Kevin. I hadn't gone to my brain.
I will ask a couple of people because the thing with Guilherme is the international transfer window doesn't actually open until tomorrow. So you can't actually, while we have bought him, he's technically not a West Ham player until tomorrow, which is obviously the new set of accounts. So perhaps that's why you don't see these transfers happening like Kevin's suggesting, and maybe that's why you see a lot of domestic ones at the moment, like Maatsen to Aston Villa, because that transfer window opened on the 14th or 16th. I think it was the 14th. It's the 14th or the 16th of June. The domestic window opened, so the Maatsen one will hit the books today. Well, whenever it happened last week, whereas the Guilherme one, I don't think will actually come into play until the next set of accounts, despite us having it signed a couple of weeks ago. I could be wrong on that one, though. That's how I understand it.
It'll be interesting to see, like you say, even if it's not just with like Luigi's a specific example, but anyone who's in the sort of like ballpark of having relatively decent finances, whether or not you'll see some early big moves from them going forward as well, just because they can, because they have the leeway to do it. Not lee room. That's two words at the same time. Reeks, says, would you be happy with Potts, Downs, and Alvarez as deeper midfield options? My gut, I wouldn't personally.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think. Yeah,
I just don't have faith in Downs.
That's okay. I think it's just a lack of European football. I think our squad's going to have to be a little bit. Going to be a bit more clever, I think, with the makeup of the squad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't be. I don't think it's the best options in the world, but there's something satisfactory about having Potts in there with it, like the
I agree with
academy
that.
player having a
Yeah,
route into the first team. It's the same with the centre backs. So that's why I'm an advocate. If Zuma goes and we have Mavropanos, and let's just say we sign. Okay, dream window for Geo at centre back, and I know people are going to scoff at this. I don't care. It's fun, right? Mavropanos and we sign Calafiori and Jacob Greaves. I'm
yeah,
happy with them three plus Casey as our centre backs next season. If
I would agree
Zuma's
with that.
one of them, we need the additional senior one. But I think having three seniors that are not too injury prone, they're really high quality, young. I think you can have Casey as your fourth one. But if you're going to have Zuma as one of your three, then you need that fourth senior centre back because he's going to get injured at some point. It might be risky, but I think it's got. I think I'd like to see some pathways into the first team for our youngsters. We've got one kind of with George Earthy. Can we have another one or two, please? And I think that one for Potts would be quite good.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I would 100% be happy with that. And it's one of those situations. Actually, now I think about it a bit deeply. Like, I wouldn't be happy if we started the season with those as our midfield options. It's Downs is my problem with it. But actually, come pre-season, if it turns up and he's actually doing bits for us, then fine. Then I'm totally fine with it. And I'm strongly in agreement with you on the youth player front. Like, strongly in agreement with me. It's one of my biggest frustrations when in years past where we've hit a sort of little injury crisis or whatever, and people, I hear the complaints start happening about us not having a deep enough squad. This isn't. I should stress, not over the last two years or whatever. I think our squad has been probably too thin. But I'm talking pre that. I'm talking a bit further back, and I'd be like, well, you can't then also argue for having youth players included because that's the point. You have to have some sort of pathway, and if that is an injury, like in this situation, right? Downs or Alvarez gets injured or suspended in Alvarez's case, all of a sudden Potts is second choice. All of a sudden you're making a sub and you need a defensive midfielder coming on. It's Potts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a hugely important thing. So I'm very up for that. I'm very up for
yeah.
that. Elan saying Villa showing why it's important to give young players minutes in the league. This is exactly what we were just saying. They might not become first team players for us, but their value will increase dramatically. And that's going to be a huge. I really believe that we're going to have to get used to this as West Ham fans. Because we want to be the academy football, we want to see them play, but equally, there's going to be situations, maybe even like Diangana, for example, where people come along and they pay a money that is big enough for them at that moment, and you go, that allows us to carry on growing, and there is genuinely going to have to be this thing that we get used to. But I think it's a good point, and I think it backs up what we were just saying, literally about Potts a second ago.
Yeah. And then we've got one from Usual Suspect says. Scottish TV not covering the England game today. Instead, they're showing an episode of Wish You Were Here. We're correct, but don't
I
worry.
respect it.
Don't worry. When the quarterfinals are on, that episode of Wish You Were Here will be shown on the English BBC.
It's good, ladies and gentlemen. It's good. It's good. It might be making fun of me, but I'm fine with it. You know what I mean?
I won't tell you what happens. You can wait until the quarterfinals to find out for yourself.
Yeah, no spoilers. No spoilers, please. That's the only thing.
For what it's worth, I think England will get to the quarterfinals. I think Switzerland will play like you have in the groups, and Swiss play like they did yesterday. I think that's them knocking you out. But yeah, don't worry, Usual. I like a little bit of fun. It's fine. Bring it on. Jay says baffled why they say there's only 50 million to spend plus whatever we get for players. Why are we paying 25 million in players unproven with one goal? But DC says we've got much more than 50 million. The club are never going to leak the real transfer, but we're saying that we tend to. Before it was almost to just maintain expectations, I think. But now we should stop doing stuff like that, and I like to think we have. And this whole 50 million thing. Listen, I'm sorry, but if we've got a really good director of football, which I think we've got a really good identifier of talent, if we do have a good director of football, 50 million is a lot of money. You can do a lot with 50 million. Yeah. Especially when I know it says, but we'll have to include player sales. But when we're away to scoop another 13 million today, possibly for Saeed Benrahma, and Downs has got, we could be a way to replace Ben Johnson with Kyle Walker-Peters and get 5 million in the process. Granted, it means Downs goes out, but there's another 5 million thrown into Kitchie. The player sales can add up for the likes of Benrahma and that as well. And if we can shift a Garrett for 30 million, I don't think we could, but Did you see that? We demanded 38 million from Lyon for Lefegard. I mean, bold.
Bold. I like it. I'm here for it. And again, earlier in the window, we can kind of accept that sort of shenanigans. No one's paying it, but like you can kind of accept those shenanigans earlier on because we don't really need to. There's not too much stress about it. We're never getting that much, bless, but you know, especially for a Rangers club. But you know, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Guy said we can't spend that much on Kilman. Lopetegui should understand as he needs about 6 players, maybe more. Surely he knows that.
I mean, he will. He will again. Like I said, prime example of us not knowing the full information. Yeah, it could also be a situation in which he goes, "Yeah, Max Kilman's my first choice," and then Steiden comes to him and goes, he's available for 45 million and only 45 million, and he goes, yeah, fair enough, that's too much, let's move on and do something else. But we'll never know that. We will literally never ever hear those conversations ever, just because there's no reason for us to ever know. But I agree, I think it's too much, but realistically it's also the fact that we're playing around with someone who is 45 million rated probably again backs up the theory that we have more money than 50 million to spend, but we're just, again, like you say, I think you're very right when you say there is no benefit to us ever leaking the exact amount of money we have for our transfer. It's just no reason why you'd ever do it.
DC said almost every player we're linked to is worth 15 to 30 million, and we're on record saying we want 6 players. Come on. Marky says buying Kyle Walker-Peters on basis he's English, younger than Soufal, and slightly better isn't selling it to him.
Kyle Walker-Peters to me is prime. Like I like him. I think he's decent, right? But I think it's prime what I was talking about the idea of like, I don't mind dabbling in that sort of market if you need to, right? So you look at Kyle Walker-Peters, he comes in, he's first choice, and they're offering to give us money as well as him for a player who's not even going to start for us. Like, that's no-brainer territory for me. It might, if at the beginning of the window, when I set out and I go, these are the right back options, Kyle Walker-Peters might not have been at the very top of that list, right? He's probably on the list somewhere, interestingly, last year of his contract, English, all that stuff. Like I say, decent player, probably suits the system. Like, he would be on the list somewhere, probably, but nowhere near the top. However, when his club are coming to you and going, we will give you him and also money for someone who's not even going to start for you, that's like no-brainer territory for me. No-brainer territory for me.
Nick says a number of players have been linked with are tad obvious. He says that now I know they're rumours, but I expect us to be linked with more under-the-radar types like the young Brazilian we got.
I don't know. I mean, maybe we're linked with a lot of people who are sort of random. Not random. I don't know what we're not just linked with players that everyone has heard of, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this depends on your knowledge and stuff. And
sure.
My knowledge of the continental game isn't that strong. So when we're linked with Perez of Udinese and Sule of Juventus, that is maybe not under the radar. When players are 30 million, I find it hard to say that that's
sure
a pearl, right? This is hardly unearthed gems at 30 million a piece, right? But as I always keep on referring back to with Bayer Leverkusen, all their signings weren't 3-4 million. There was some decent signings in there for prices last summer. Now I know Steiden had left at this point, but we're going to sort of base what we want on what Leverkusen have done. 12 months ago, they brought in Grimaldo, Boniface, and Granit Xhaka. And Tella for 20 million from Southampton. It was Southampton. If we'd gone after Tella for 20 million, it would have kicked off.
Yeah.
Right. But those 4 players are hardly unearthed gems, diamonds, are they? We know we've heard of 3 of them, and a lot of people had heard of Boniface because of what he was doing in Belgium. So they weren't exactly in fact, I would suggest that Boniface signing back then is similar to what we're doing with some of the players we're going after now, which is young players performing at a high level. I'm okay with the links, but I think it's because I don't particularly believe them. But I consider Calafiori, Perez, Sule, young players with a decent amount of appearances under their belt for their age, playing at a decent level. I'm really happy with those transfer targets, truth be told.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I think I hate the Pearl Dive nickname. It pisses me off so much. But I think when you do look at the sort of if we take the Leverkusen signings as examples, right? Not this summer, not last summer, but the summer before and before that. I think realistically, the Pearls for me, if we want to word it in that term, um, aren't the aren't the players that everyone's thinking about. It's the people who they signed for 6 million, who are 27 years old, who have gone on to become first team players, massive, because that's genuine. That's value. Like Luigi isn't value. Now, don't get me wrong. We sell him for 75 million, 85 million in a couple of years. It's a good deal, but I still wouldn't describe it as great. I wouldn't describe it as like unbelievable value. It's like you took a big punt on a player who's young, you spent a lot of money on it, and it's worked out. Brilliant. Perfect. You love to see it. That's not a bad thing. We should be doing that as well. But actually I can't remember his name now. It's gone out of my head. The centre mid who was in the German squad for the Euros. I don't know why his name's gone out of my head. Um I could see his face as well. Doesn't matter. But if you go when we get linked to someone who's like 26, 20,
I want to know now.
I'll look up the squad as I talk. I can do
What,
I
a
can do two
German
things at
centre
once.
midfielder from a few years ago?
No, German centre midfielder plays for Leverkusen currently.
Oh,
They
Andrick.
signed. Yeah, thank you, Andrick. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
There
Right,
you go.
Andrick. They signed him for what, 6-7 million? He was
Yeah.
probably 26 at the time, something like that. And he goes on to become someone who's first choice for them and playing in a national team. That is a pearl. The problem is when we get linked to players who are 25, 26 for like 6 million or something. Not 6 million because we haven't really been linked with too many of those. But there is a negative like association with that amongst the fan base where we're going, what the hell are we doing here? But that's a pearl to me. Someone who is that cheap, who can go on to become a first choice for you, and also, even if it's just a good squad player, but a first choice for you for years to come. And look, he's obviously worked out because he's gone to play for Germany. That's pearl to me. That's stuff that's the bread and butter of your squad. Luigi's not your bread and butter. Luigi is your like that's your fanciness. That's your top level. That's your swaggering about. Look at us. We got this exciting Brazilian youngster. Blah blah blah. The bread and butter of the squad. That's the stuff I'm looking for, and that's the stuff where like I don't mind being linked to these players. It's a bit like I don't know. I don't know who a good example would be, but like I think that's the stuff that's really interesting to me, and that's the stuff that I think is make or break for Steiden. Everyone will look at Luigi. Everyone will look at other big name signs. Kilman would be another one. Who are big, expensive, big ticket items. But actually, the make or break for me is whoever Andrick turns out to be.
Gary agrees with you. He says that's Craig Dawson type signing, small outlay,
Yeah,
but do a
100%.
job for a few years, supplemented by a couple of big transfers. Steve's asking about the young player from Man City. I've just gone and had a look. That's what I was doing while Charlie was trying to remember who it was. David Chiguada has signed from Man City for Fabrizio Romano, who had the picture yesterday. And this is just more proof that who he knows. Look, he's actually put he's watermarked the photo, which he obviously didn't take. He got it from somebody at West Ham, obviously, and he's watermarked it. So I've never heard of him, Steve. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm clued up on the under 21 squads from elsewhere, but we're signing quite a few of them. So what I'm going to do next week is contact somebody that'll know the young players that we're signing and why we're signing them. Try and get a little bit of info about them. Hammer 99 says, why do we want players in foreign leagues? Walker Peters, Greaves, and Philogene would be a great start. Young, homegrown, and more likely to settle quickly and hit the ground running. Mike's just re-emphasising that we do need homegrown players. Jaden is saying about how we have contacted the Georgian striker Mikautadze. Is it Mikautadze? Mikautadze. I'm sure his name's Mikautadze. Mikautadze. I'm sure that's his name. He thinks he looks fast, not scared to take players on, score from outside the box and drive in from the wings. And he reckons he's a perfect replacement. People just discussing whether we could get Calafiori or not. Jimmy saying that we're not going to get him. They don't like going out of Italy. Toby saying he's going to Switzerland already. Did you see that quote from him from like 3 years ago has popped up saying that he'd like to go to West Ham or Roma?
The big two.
Yeah, I don't know why,
No,
but it's like, but it was done like a couple of years ago before we had all this hype and stuff. So I don't know if he actually said. I've not verified it. I've just seen the thing going round that he
it's
said
no
it.
random selection of teams. I'm here for it. Why not?
I reckon it's the Bona influence.
That's what it is. The dome working wonders.
Og Fathom.
Attracting them all with that shininess, like a moth to a flame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love it. I'm here for it. All the Italian defenders circling around it. Maybe. I mean, it's one of those things. You know, you have when you're younger, you have players who you like, and so you sort of get attracted to that team because of it.
He's a left-foot centre back, isn't he? I mean, he also had Chiellini to pick from, but maybe he did opt for
none of that. Who's Giorgio? Who? Not interested, mate. Angelo, big Ange, easy, light work.
So, so there you go. We'll see. Should we start wrapping it up, Bev? Anything you'd like to add, or any comments you want to quick one before we disappear?
Do you know what? I think just in general, I'm relatively calm about it. I think it asked me 2 weeks, it might be very different. But I think as much as I want players in as early as possible, I think it's easy to go around and try and find the big ticket items now earlier in the window and to sort of test the waters and see what happens and feel your way into it. You know what I mean? Like the beginning of a boxing match where they're not throwing haymakers from the start, they're feeling their way into it a little bit. And I feel like that's where we're at. We're feeling our way into the window. We've got a couple of things through, like the Fodringham one, the Luigi one. We're sort of working our way into it, and I think I'll be interested to see where we are in 2 weeks' time. That's when I'll start to panic a little bit more. I think there are some obvious, like I think the Carl Walker-Peters one, for example, is obvious. I think that's a no-brainer for me. I think those sort of things will probably start to happen over the next couple of weeks. And again, we could be sitting here. Next Sunday, there could be a situation where we've signed 2 more players, and the stress becomes significantly less. I'll be interested to see how it ends up playing out. And I don't want to put all of the pressure on this window being make or break or anything, because I don't think it is. But I'll be interested to see where we end up. But I'm calm. I'm calm at this point.
Right then, we'll leave it there before it disappears. Just remind you about this shirt, match worn shirt. Where can you get a match worn shirt for £3.60? Well, you can't get it. Well, you can on Hammers Chat Patreon if you're the lucky winner. Patreon.com/Hammers Chat, links in the description below. Charlie, I'll leave you to wrap it up, my friend.
Appreciate you all for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button because it helps us out massively. If not for any of the rest of the video, that bit when Geo did like an entire transfer video in one take right in front of you live. If that's not worth a cheeky like, I don't know what is. But appreciate you all. There'll be plenty of stuff coming up in the week as well as later on this evening with the England match. So yeah, please join us. We would much appreciate it. Cheers, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. And we'll see you next time. Bye.